to see you all. Welcome, Billy, as always. Welcome, Deb.
Yes.
And this is our knowledge transfer session for Ley Love Down number 11, which we've just come into a 1 year, and we're just giggling about this. Just come into a 1 year, so 2 plus 2 plus 6 comes to 10, which is a 1. This is the first KTS for this year, and it's number 11. So we've got an 11-11 going on here, which is pretty cool. Also, January, first month of the year. Deb, I want to thank you for coming on because I know we just kind of threw you in, said come and join us. I just want to share with everybody just a little bit of what you do because it's pretty comprehensive. You're a pretty amazing individual. I've known you for a while, obviously. We got to spend some beautiful time with you, Billy and myself, at the Cosmic Consciousness Conference in December last year, which was amazing. Absolutely spectacular conference. So just so for people who don't know Deb, I know we've got lots of amazing people in today that do know Deb, but for those who don't, this is just a short rundown of just some of the things that she does. So she's a closing the bones practitioner, a crystal bowl sound and voice healing practitioner. She is a soul midwife, death doula, and that's the thing that I'm really wanting to ask lots of questions about today. She conducts earth soul healings through Ley Love Sound, which is awesome. She's a psychopomp, and for those who don't know, that is helping souls to pass over into a dimension after a physical incarnation, a circle holder, an aromatherapist, and also does Hawaiian temple style bodywork and Heartwork Lomi facilitator. So I hope I said that right. So welcome, Deb. How are
Thank
you?
you. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for inviting me. We've just had a little giggle, but feeling nervous and scared at the same time, but it's the same hormone. So I'm going with excited.
Exactly. Yeah.
We had a great
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It was so
Thank you for coming on. It's yeah, we only met online prior, but yeah, we met at the conference. It was just awesome to connect with you and yeah, learn more about you because it was more like the conference we're kind of focusing on. So it'd be good to learn more about you and what you do. So yeah, let's get into it, hey?
Yeah. Maybe first thing I could ask, Deb, is you could sort of just share with us what you do at the Cosmic Consciousness Conference. Oh my God, it's such a mouthful. What is your job there?
so I was asked so the last one was my fourth conference, and Catherine and Mick, who are the founders who birthed CCC like 10 years ago now, asked if I would be team lead for the volunteers last year before last, with when we were in Uluru. And so I jumped at it, and I'd never really done anything like that before. And it's because Catherine had joined an online business that I had, and I was leading a team there that's when they asked me whether I'd do it or not. So again, I just jumped in and said yes, and it was just amazing. And then like the same day the conference ended in Uluru, so will you do it again next year? And so yeah, and of course I don't even have a choice about this year in Cradle Mountain. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, hopefully it's okay to out that. And you're going to be at Cradle Mountain too, aren't you, Billy?
Yes, hopefully, yes. Looking forward to it. So I love Tassie. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
organising that number of volunteers is no mean feat. So I'm very impressed that you do that. And it's such a beautiful aspect of the conference that this amazing group of volunteers come in every year to make it happen. Because without them, it just couldn't possibly happen. So yeah, being the head of that, that's spectacular. I wanted to share one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you on. Firstly, because I know you're amazing. I've known you for a while and I know what incredible work you do. The other reason was I was just so impressed at the way that you held space during the ceremony, the solstice ceremony for CCC in December. So for those who weren't there, we were all walking in a formation and picking up a couple of sticks, and we're placing one stick in to get rid of what we didn't want anymore in our lives and to release, and placing a stick into the fire for what we wanted to create from memory. And during that whole process, Deb was doing her beautiful shamanic ululation and beating a drum, and she just basically held the whole space. So I don't know if you realized you were doing that, Deb, but you really did. For me, you were the focal point. Amazing and so free. And I was jealous because singing for me is hard. It's such hard work. If I get up on a stage and have to actually sing, it's all right if I'm just on the ground with a group of people, but getting up on stage and doing is pretty terrifying. So have you always had that confidence to just be out there and just to be able to share your voice?
No, no, I've always, thank you, Rachel. That's when you said that, when you mentioned that last week, I thought, oh, what was I doing? And I was drumming and singing.
Yeah.
That is something I've always sang, always from a little girl. My dad had a beautiful voice. He always sang to us. So I've always sang. But it's only been I would say the last couple of years, and then the last 6 months working with Tim and Elise from Source 88, and also some vocal coaching that I had, some somatic vocal coaching, that it's just like, why are you holding back? I've always toned, like from being a body worker with Kahuna, and that's another, we tone with the whales. So I very much communicate with the whales. And so that's always been there. It's always that guttural, it's been there. But what I've learned more recently is just the connection that we have from here, the blockages we have from here and the blockages we've got down here. And it's just the fire and the water comes, whereas sometimes there can be more fire, sometimes there's more water, and it's actually bringing them into harmony, bringing them into balance. And when I get that, when I feel it, it just comes. And now it's like, I don't give a toss what anybody thinks. I was my worst critic. I've got to watch my language. I was my worst critic, my own worst enemy, really. And now it's like, no. And I read something today from Santara. He's a beautiful sound healer and voice coach, and I've written it down. It said, if the suppression of the human voice is one of our deepest wounds, reclaiming the voice is one of the deepest forms of healing. And I really feel that that's so true. But going back, Rachel, it started, I'm not going to apologize, say sorry, but I skip. I have so many different.
Feel free. Go wherever you are led.
But it was Ley Love Down. It was you guys, and joining Ley Love Down a couple of years ago and singing to spirit and to the souls here to help release here. Story that it started to come.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm guessing the last 18 months, 2 years, but then more so in the last 6 months. And now it's just like, no, I'm a space holder. And if I can do that, I didn't know I was holding space. I just knew that whatever was coming through needed to come out. And I encourage everybody to do the same. And Rachel, I've heard you on stage, and you're, not in person, but I've heard you singing, and it was amazing. So yeah, we're all, yeah.
But it is really interesting. And sorry, Billy, I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm doing it again. So everybody who's watching, I can't stand silence, and I just want to jump in with a question. So I'll give you a second. But I just want to point out, I've got a dear friend, Charlotte, who is my singing coach, and I've been having lessons for about, nearly 2 years. And she explained to me that feeling of being out in front of everybody when you're singing, that feeling of terror is actually about being prey. We're not comfortable because we're not a very dangerous animal physically. So, eons of being, the center of attention makes you feel like prey. It makes you feel really, really vulnerable, which made a lot of sense to me. I finally understood why that might be. And interestingly as well, with the voice, when you're singing, you are balancing, it's partly the vagus nerve gets soothed, but also the sympathetic nervous system gets soothed as well. So humming is incredibly soothing. So there's something so powerful and healing about using your voice and singing and not caring what anybody thinks of you and just letting it out in so many different ways. But it's also, there's also that fear that comes with it, which is also normal and natural. So I just wanted to share that because Charlotte's been an amazing, I wouldn't be able to use my voice the way that I can if it wasn't for her and her teaching. And, watching somebody like yourself, Deb, do it, so unselfconsciously was just lovely for me at CCC. I really loved that. Billy,
Thank you.
would you like to ask a question?
So it was just such a beautiful ceremony, and people had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. I'd organized a separate place to go, and and then all of a sudden it just crumbled, and they said we couldn't have it, and so we were paddling underwater like crazy. What are we going to do? And they said the only place we could have was behind the venue, and we were like, and people were freaking out, and I said, you know what? It'll work. And then we got the fire team, and the fire team went and lit the fire, and then Heather the shaman came along, and she went, who's lit the fire? That was for the fire ceremony. It was like, oh my God. It was one of the loveliest ceremonies.
It was,
and everybody just held such a beautiful space. It was amazing. Yeah.
I missed out on it. I must have been doing something else, but unfortunately, I saw the start and it was great. Just all the music, it was fantastic. I just felt everyone's energy in the room and like before going outside, so that was really good. I want to just ask you about how you've come to do what you're doing now, because you've got so many things that you do. Do you want to start wherever you want to start? That's a big question.
Because when you invited me last week, when you both invited me, it was like, oh my God, what have I got to offer? What do I do? Who am I? The whole self-sabotage came in. And then I just thought, no. And I was remembering it's the year of the fire horse starting in February, and just get on the horse. And so it was like, who are you? And then it was like, no, say yes. And I did. And then it just got me to thinking, well, what do I do? And I was really, really blessed with my parents. It's that they always encouraged me to do anything that I wanted. And they always said, you can do anything you want. They never held me back. They never held any of us back. And so I did. And I've always been in healthcare. Well, I was from the age of 17. I was a pediatric nurse. And then at the age of 18, I could do my proper nursing. So I went to the other side of the country, and my mum said, I knew as soon as you're 18, you'd be off. And I went as far away as I could, even though I had the most amazing relationship with them. I couldn't wait to leave home. And that goes back to the 3-year-old and the childhood stuff. But I did nursing, and then I went straight in. I was an air stewardess, and then I had kids. And then it was like I wanted to go back to nursing again. Actually, no, I became an aromatherapist. That's right. And then I didn't realize, doing aromatherapy was plant medicine, and which I know now. And I know a lot more about the oils, even though I learned all the chemistry back then. Don't ask me now. So I've always been a carer. I've always been off service and in service my whole life. And it can be quite exhausting. And so I started in nursing, went into massage. Then it was like, no, I need to be a nurse again, went into nursing. And then through nursing again, it was, I need to be massaging again. I need to be doing hands-on. And so I remember looking up spiritual massage, and then Kahuna came up. And so it was literally half an hour from where we lived, High Spirits. And so that was back in 2015. And But before that, see, this is what I'm doing now. So my nursing, I helped actually. I was one of the nurses. I was palliative care nurse.
Wow.
And before I went back to Kahuna, or before I started Kahuna, I helped set up hospital in the home and palliative care on the Sunshine Coast in Brisbane. And that was epic. It was huge. You know, I wasn't one of the big managers, but I was in management, and I led a team of nurses. And so yeah, we set up Silver Chain. See, I'm going to jump again, aren't I? So this was in 2012, and our first client lived in Tewantin on the Sunshine Coast, and our palliative care client, and that's basically how I met Ian, which I'll talk that story later. But yeah, that's how basically Ian's late wife was our first palliative care client. So I met Ian during as a nurse, but obviously not in like that. It was several months after. We just kept bumping into each other. And this was in 2012. And then I ended up using the same builder as he had. And that's how we met.
It's quite a beautiful story. It was so lovely because I've had the blessing of being able to hear the story from you and also from Ian. And it's just so beautiful because you never know which ways that people are going to be brought together, and it's so appropriate given the kind of work that you were doing. I mean, a lot of people would be a lot of people are terrified of death, but not just their own death, having to deal with death with the people around them. Nobody wants to have to go to a funeral and all of those things, but you immersed yourself in that work. You worked as a death doula. So how long were you doing that?
Well, no, I see. This is the thing. I was a nurse for a long time, but I was a palliative care nurse in the first world. So it's only, and I was a first world nurse. I had no idea. In fact, we were talking, it was something you did on your predictions the other day, and we were talking about vaccinating children. One of the times when I was working in community, I had to vaccinate babies.
Awesome.
And I would bawling my eyes out. I couldn't do it. I had to leave. And now I realized afterwards, even though I feel I'm a wise woman, I've got a lot of wisdom, you know, I've done a lot of stuff, I still was closed off to that. But yet my whole body would scream, you know, and so I think I lasted, I don't know, maybe a month in this practice, and it's like I just couldn't do it anymore. And now it makes complete sense. And working as a palliative care nurse as well, I was lucky towards the end. Ian and I we'd bought a motorhome. I'd left Silver Chain. I had sort of a meltdown, a breakdown, and left there, took a redundancy, and we said, what are we waiting for? Why are we waiting till we retire? So we basically sold all our shit, and we bought a motorhome, and with a 10-year plan to travel Australia and live in this motorhome. We called her Flow. We had a business, the Kahuna Combi, because I used to have a combi. And so I had the whole setup that we massaged from when we were traveling around. And then the lockdown came. But when we used to go back to Sunshine Coast, I used to work at the hospice. And it was a 3-bedded hospice. It was a beautiful home that had been donated, a beautiful house, 3 bedrooms. So we just had 3 guests there. And it was during that time towards the nonsense had started. And there was a young girl who wanted to come and see her dad. And she was 22, and they wouldn't let her in. And I just said, this is effed. And I couldn't do it anymore. It was just, I can't be part of that, you know, putting the thermometer on people's heads. And I just knew something wasn't right. And that was it. And then everything kicked off. And I did find out the next day that they did let her in round the side, you know, window to see her father, who was, I think, 48, 49. And so it was just cruel. It was a cruel time. And then, you know, once going down rabbit holes, it was, this is not right. And I never renewed my license, you know, because APRA were a big part a big part of this. So then it was like, well, who am I? Because most of my life I've been the nurse. And so the identity, you know, Deb the nurse, and it was no longer. So I went through a period of, well, what am I going to do? But then what happened was we kept getting locked down in blooming campsites, and we were up north somewhere, and I woke up one morning and it was just, spirit came through really, really fierce, and it was just there. You've got to move south, buy land and grow food. So I just turned to him and I said, just got a message. We've got to move south, grow land, buy land, grow food, and move south. And he went, okay. So we went on realestate.com, and there was this place in Northern Rivers, and I've always felt I was never really comfortable on the Sunshine Coast. And as soon as I crossed the border into New South Wales and I saw the mountain, Mount Wollumbin, it just was home to me. It was like, anyway, long story short, we ended up in a community, like an MO in near Kyogo. And we loved it. We were really lucky. We couldn't believe it. We were in a bit of a saga getting in there. But so we were there, I think, for 2+ years, but it was not a happy time. It was not a happy time at all. We loved the land. The land was beautiful, very precious. And but we were bullied, really. There were people that didn't want us there, you know, and now again I see it. We were shining lights, you know, and there were some old hippies there that just did not want change. They'd put every option our way that they could. And then Ian got a diagnosis that nobody wants to hear back in 23, and was, you know, particularly bullied by this family. And I said, do you want to be here for the rest of your life? And it was just like, no. And I said, well, what are we waiting for? And within a week, honestly, I swear not, a friend sent us this place, and she went, Deb, look at this. And it looked amazing. And so I sent a message off, and she was a little bit off, this woman. And then when she realized that I understood what communities were, because you can't just buy into a community, you've got to become familiar, you've got to show up, you've got to go and do working, you have to, you know, in 6 months, like being regularly. And we came to this place, and it was just, as soon as we came here, it was like, wow. And then she said there were over 300 inquiries for this place. We got it. Because I kept coming back to you. She said there was something about you. There was something about you. And there's a mushroom journey that I did a couple of years ago that I'll talk about later. But now I know why. And there's lots of jigsaw pieces. And this is one of them. And so going back to the doula, when we were in Kyogo, and I'd left and I'd been stripped of everything, it was like, well, what am I going to do? And then somebody phoned me in need of help, who was dying. He was dying. You know, his wife called me, and he got a diagnosis. And so, and it wasn't just me. Ian was supporting as well with this family. And it was really, really complex, like really complex. And it went on for a long time. It went on for a few months. And then and somebody else called me, and they'd had a stillborn baby, and again Ian was involved with that. And so it just thought, okay, well, I'd already done my death walker training back in 2016 with Zenith Virago, and I'd done my doula training online, and there was just something missing. You know, I knew that I would needed to be doing the work and still working in death and dying, because it is beautiful, sacred work, but there was something missing for me. And then I did type that whole thing in again, that spiritual death work. And soul midwifery came up in the UK, a beautiful woman called Felicity Warner. And that was everything that was missing for me. It was just the missing link. It was bringing in ritual, bringing in the old ways, the ancient ways, you know, working with the ancestors, working with spirit, whereas being a doula is more practical. But I was allowed to do my woo. I'm quite woo-woo. So even at the hospital, a hospice, when I worked at the hospice, I would be flying, I'd be, doing, helping people pass and, making them feel safe. And so that's how I got into soul midwifery.
Wow, fantastic. This is such a beautiful example of your life and what you've just described. It's so perfect for the first, knowledge transfer session for a 1 year. Last year was all about, getting rid of what you don't want anymore and dealing with the stuff that you're ignoring, whether it's for the last 9 years or your lifetime or past lives or anything. What you've described is, if you're going into a 1 year and you are not doing what makes your heart sing, listen to what Debs just described. There's been all of these instances where her body was saying no, her heart was saying no, she wasn't happy with what she was doing, and then she moved on to something better. And in some instances, it sounds like it was reasonably, not necessarily easy, but a quick transition. What I see with people is if they stick with something they cannot stand, that's when they get sick, because the soul frequency is not working properly in the body when you are doing something that makes you miserable. And this is the number 1 year, literally, for doing the new thing that makes you happy and joyful, so that you're living your life with joy, not doing something for the man just to make money, but actually living your life with joy. And your life is a great example too, Deb, because part of that was traveling, like just getting in a van, not even having, necessarily a house to live in lockdown, for God's sake. So you have to remind me. So you said in the camping grounds, they were trying to lock you down.
Yeah, well, we were locked in. So it was bizarre. We were on the Sunshine Coast, and we ended up in Bly for 6 months on a campsite. And even the toilet blocks were locked off. You could only stay there if you got your own facilities. So it was surreal. When we look back now and we think that was mental, it was crazy. But yes, so much has happened, and what you've just said, Rachel, it's so true. And you know what? I always remember years and years ago, my mum saying, I said to her, "What have I got though? What do I do?" And she went, "Are you serious?" And she got a bit cross with me. And she said, "Look at everything you've done." She said, "I'm so proud of you, And then, like I was saying today, I started to write a list of things that I have done, and I have done a lot. It's just that I'm not linear. It's just like if something appeals, it's like I'm off. I don't wait. I'm off. If I get the calling, I do it. And I, like I said, I've been working with Tim and Elise and Ian too, and we've learned a lot. I've been playing the bowls for a few years now, but I thought I was playing the bowls. No, I was not playing the bowls. Now I can play the bowls. But last week I did my first collaborative with a local woman doing yoga nidra. And it was really interesting because that space is one that I do my body work in, but she does her yoga nidra. And she came in and she sat down and she claimed her space, and she sort of shoved me in a corner. And it was like, I felt like this, and she was telling me this, and we'll do this and we'll do that, and do you want to say anything? And I was a bit, ooh. And when it came to playing, oh my God, it was like I felt like I'd never played before. My singing blur, and the bowls I'd not even seen if I could get the mallet around, and it was like I felt it was the worst ever. But it's because I didn't speak up. I didn't speak up, and I went, oh yeah, I'm okay, and it's like I'll never do that again. Yeah. But the feedback, of course, was great, and people commented, and it was wonderful. But I know I wasn't channeling. It was not. It was head voice. It wasn't. And my brother said, "Can I give you some feedback?" Because my he's on here actually, and he's here from England. He said, "Can I give you some constructive feedback?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And he said, "You need to be doing this out in nature." And he said, "I'm so uncomfortable." And again, Ian and I we're actually going to be doing sun, sea, sound, and chi. We're doing a circle on the beach, and so we've got it all planned out in here. We've just got to do it. But then it was like, he said, and they said, near the ley lines, or I went, yes, I can take people in nature and do Ley Love Sound. So I contacted Rachel. Can I use Ley Love Sound?
Yeah.
Because exactly what I want to be doing. I do want to be out in nature. I don't want to be in a room anymore.
Yeah.
You know, after my reading with you like a year ago, Rachel, I was ready to walk out from the space that I was in. And she said to me, wherever you are now, Deb, you need to get out of there. And I knew I did. There was a lot of dark energy in that place. And it was not in alignment. And even Kahuna was not in alignment with me anymore. And so I'm now doing intuitive work. I'm really working with the gifts that I've collated over the decades, you know, and trusting that. And that's a big word. And it's just to trust, because we've all got our own gifts. We've all got them. And you know, we've just been so suppressed that we're not good enough and you can't do it. And who are you? And it's all BS. And you know, I'm 62 and it's like, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to do it. And so I am. Yeah, that's yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah. I think that a lot of people I've been talking to have been feeling like that. It's just like, bugger it, just put all that stuff aside. It's been holding me back, and just go for it. And for myself, it's been happening like that, but people around me. So it's great that you are doing that. I want to ask about, Rachel mentioned and I know you offer this, closing the bones. Do you want to explain a little bit more what that is? Because I'd never heard of it before until you mentioned it to me. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful ceremony. So a few years ago, again, another workshop. I've done that many workshops, but there's a woman called Nayali Vivaldi, and she's Brazilian, and she came to Australia to teach closing the bones. Now, closing the bones it's an ancient ritual in South America, mainly in Mexico. And so when a woman is postpartum, 40 days postpartum, the closing of the bones ritual is done. And so the reason is that when we're pregnant, what happens, our bones, everything softens, ready to open, you know, so the pelvis softens, so ready for the baby to be born. But here in the West, we don't close that. So that's why we get a lot of prolapses and a lot of pain and, you know, a lot of spinal problems. And so I did this workshop, and there were 32 midwives and doulas, birth doulas, and me, a death doula, and soul midwife, because I knew that this is not only work for post-birth, this is for grief work. Because when you have your bones closed, you're in such a, you know, sacred, safe cocoon, and it's a profound healing. And I was lucky enough to be one of 6 people chosen. And any trauma that you've had in your life as well, which we've all had, it's a chance it's a beautiful, beautiful ritual. And you don't just, you know, lie down and then rat. It's, you know, you're beaten with herbs and there's boiling water poured on you. And, you know, it's a great ceremony, a beautiful honoring of the woman. But for me, I feel that it's for everyone, and for grief work. So that's why I'm offering closing the bones, not just for postpartum women. And it's also so lovely. The baby that passed away a few years, or probably 3 years ago now, we did a beautiful ceremony. We brought in his mum and grandma, and we closed together. And she said that he came, the baby was there. And so it's very, very deep work. But when you then unravel, it's just like a freedom. Yeah, it's and it's not, you know, you were talking 4 or 5 hours for this whole program. Yeah, it's very special. Very special.
You want to tell us a little bit more about Ley Love Sound?
Well, what came to me, and it was after my brother shared last week, and Ley Love Sounds, because where we are, so again, we're in the most beautiful part of the world, Northern Rivers, New South Wales, and we're nestled in between Bunjalung National Park and an Aboriginal protected area, and see the ocean, and I'm going to skip here, don't you? And then we live on the top of a ridge, and we did a cultural burn here about 18 months ago, and one of the Indigenous elders came, and he hung around, and there was a big grandmother tree at the end of our drive, and he said, oh, they would have settled here and left their bodies. And he said, you're on a song line, don't you? And so I was like so excited. And then learning more about leys, and I know that it's powerful land. And then when I did the mushroom journey, no, I'm not going to talk about the mushroom journey, but so it was just, now that I can sometimes see the leys, but I feel them more than anything. But I can see leys now. It was like, I want to take people to the leys to harmonize, to sing, because that's how I started singing Ley Love Down. Now I just sing and play the bowls. So I want to give them an experience, but also to do some of the closing. And so in nature. Fantastic. So it'll either be so that's the vision that I've got now. So,
and that all relates to the psychopomping as well, which that's something that we really need to get more into. We had beautiful Cheryl Prince on for the last session, and she sort of talked about her psychopomping work, and so many people don't really even know what it means. I didn't know until I met Cheryl. So it's basically helping souls that are trapped or stuck to move on to the dimension that they belong in. And it's so important. It's so important. And as Cheryl kept saying, it's so weird that nobody realizes how important this work is, and why aren't they doing it? Well, thank you, Deb, because you're obviously doing it.
Well, it like I was saying, is the first world nurse. When I worked in community, I was really, really blessed that in all the many, 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 many deaths that I witnessed, there was probably only 4 that were in deep fear, like deep fear of death.
Right, wow.
And if I'd known then what I know now, I could have really helped them. I could have really made a difference. But now I know I can help them. And in the hospice, that's when I used to do my woo-woo. And and I've been witness to beautiful deaths, but there are ones that get trapped, and that's why we were brought to this land, which I saw and was told, and I was shown. So in this land, the Goanna headland, which is in front of us, there were 2 massacres here.
Wow.
And the elder told us that they would have been running up the ridge. So I was clearly shown where these trapped souls were, and they're directly in front of us and in our orchard. And so I was shown what I had to do. It had to be the women, the feminine, not the men. The men had to be surrounding us. And we had to sing. I was told, this is 2 years ago in February, 2 years ago in this journey, and I was told you have to sing. All the women have to sing, and you've got to get the girls who play the instruments, you've got to get them now to sing, and you've got to buy one of those things that you stick in the ground and the plants. It's like the plant sound thing. And everybody all the women here at the Ridge had a role to do. But when I came back all excited, he's like, I've got to do this. Oh, and I got to bring in Rachel because she had the connection to the Indigenous elders. And she was like, Deb, calm down, slow down. So we've got to be, it's very, very tender. It's still a touchy subject. They don't want to talk. And so I was like, chomping at the bit for months. And it's like, and I tell a couple of people and they go, oh, yeah, yeah. And in the end, I thought it's not going to happen. So it's just been me. And that's okay, because I'm doing the work, just singing and playing the bowls. It's enough. And listening to Haley Wallace and what she shared, so I know I'm doing the work, and it feels much lighter down there for sure. Yeah.
Well, maybe that was an invitation. I was going to say, maybe that's an invitation for whoever's listening to join you, doing what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And when I had my reading with Rachel, which was this time last year, and she told me that I was an usher, which of course is a psychopomp.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what's an usher? And you told me, and you said that there's only a handful of us, and no wonder I'm exhausted, because apparently I'm helping people when I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
So
I would put that in the category of the hardest soul journey in a physical experience. For a human to have a physical experience as an usher soul, a light usher soul, yeah, it's hard work, but it's, you know, extremely important. And instinctively, you knew to go into that work. And, you know, you describe yourself as a psychopomp, which is fantastic, you know, and you're a death doula. I just have to mention, I'm looking at beautiful Catherine Hand, and I can see beautiful Michael Turner, and I can also see Tim on screen with his gorgeous little one. And I think that might be Elise in the background. I'm not sure. So we've got CCC here with us, which is really lovely. And you know, there's people here that were actually at the conference as well, which is also really lovely. So again, it feels like a family, all in the same space again.
And it's thanks to Catherine and Mick, really, because it was 2020 that we were on the road, and I just thought, oh, we've got to go to this, and it looks amazing. And it was life-changing. It was absolutely life-changing. And we were in the motorhome then, and that's when I just knew there was something more. And the ceremony that we had that night was absolutely incredible. We literally, they closed the national park. Poor Catherine, she got up in the morning and told us, you know, she said, I've been wanting to tell you, and I'm so excited that for the first time ever, they're letting us into the park to do ceremony for solstice. And we were all like, yeah, and there were like 300 people there.
Yeah.
And within 2 hours, the national park was closed. So we knew that there was a mole in there, or, you know, there was somebody.
Yeah.
But they made it work, you know, they just made it work. And they even took us out on the coaches and took us on a little journey through the field of lights, and then ended up at the school cricket field or the school football field. But I've got goosebumps now. What we witnessed that night was just, we were all threatened. You must have your phones off. Your phones have got to be off. You've got to be on silent. And we literally witnessed the sky open.
Wow.
And we were all around the world. People were meditating towards Uluru, but it actually was over Katajuta. And the sky just opened. It was an incredible red, orange. And then it was just this lightest blue. We can't explain it. And we were all like, and then, of course, when ceremony was over, everybody's trying to get their phones out, you know, to take photographs. And we did. There was some beautiful moments captured. But that trip for me was completely life-changing. And yeah, so the last 5-6 years have been epic. And it was thanks to CCC. And it's funny because we were staying in the campsite there, and I didn't want to leave. I kept thinking, unfinished business. And everybody had gone, like people had gone. The whole campsite was empty. We'd been there for nearly 3 weeks or something. And Ian said, Deb, we've got to go. I'm saying, no, I don't want to go. And the van wouldn't start for the first time ever. The van wouldn't start. And we had to walk to find somebody in the resort to come and help us start the car. So be careful what you ask for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that powerful. It can affect mechanical objects easily. It happens.
Yeah. I just want to ask, is there anything else you wanted to share about, like, what you do? I know you were selling it at the conference, the shawls. Is there anything you want to say about the shawls, what they're about?
I'm a bit sad actually about the shawl. The shawls are beautiful. They're not my baby, but I was so passionate when my dad transitioned last year. When I came back, I had some bodywork with a dear friend, and she draped one of these shawls over me, and it was Mary Magdalene, and I just felt this energy on me. It was like, whoa, when I was bawling, and what is that? And she told me, and these shawls that it was somebody, she'd been to a retreat, a friend she'd been on a retreat. She was doing a chakra dance or whatever it was, and she just had this massive channel download of these are the molecules, you need to get these molecules embedded into these shawls, here are some designs, put them out, you've got to get them on people's bodies because they're healing tools. And she did, within a matter of weeks, she did that. And I just knew that I wanted to be part of it to help get these out for the healing of people. And but sadly, she now wants to make me an employee. And it's like, no, I've got out of the system. I don't want to be working for anybody anymore. So I've got my own things to do, and me and Ian have got work to do. And so I probably won't be doing it for much longer. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, you
Who
do
knows?
a wonderful job. She's lucky to have had you, basically, because you did a fantastic job of, sharing the gift of the shawls. And it's interesting because I've been doing some writing recently, and I had to put in, as one of the tools for protection, if you're going to do reading work or if you're going to do psychopomping, you might want to have some physical tools. Obviously, you need your prayers of protection and your preparations energetically, but to have a physical thing that you put on your body that is a signifier to you that you are in a protective state, because your intent's really what protects you. It's incredibly powerful. And a shawl is a very clever thing because it feels like a hug.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If anybody's all the original molecule shawls, and they are very beautiful. I think half the people in here have probably got them.
So where do people find you, Deb? Where are you? Are you on socials?
Northern Rivers, New South Wales. Billy's laughing because she knows Billy's just made me a wonderful website, and Deb tried to go in and change things and sort of messed up and said, Billy, can you help? So I'm putting a website together. But again, I really struggle with anything computer so I don't really put myself out there. It's always been word of mouth. It's always been word of mouth.
It's the best way.
Yeah.
Getting referrals, especially, when people refer people to you, they've already got a testimonial from that person and know you're amazing. It's the best way to work.
And I will only do kahuna now if they come from, I've got a friend, he's a shaman, and him and his wife, they'll send me people. So I'll only work with them at that level, working in a seaside town. Not everybody gets the work. So I'm very mindful of who gets that. And that's not ego, it's powerful work. And not everybody can cope with it.
Yeah,
so
sure. I just want to say on Billy's behalf, she's amazing. As far as websites are concerned, she was obviously working in the audiovisual capacity for CCC. She's just shut my website, basically redone it, and it's spectacular. She doesn't charge enough. But if anybody here or anybody watching wants to know about Billy's skills, we'll have that in the description box, because I think it's pretty important to get Billy out there, because she does a lot for Ley Love Down as well. A lot of work in the voluntary capacity. And Ley Love Down doesn't pay any of the volunteers because we haven't got money. We don't take money. We don't have money. Maybe one day we will, but we'll see how we go. Billy, if you need work, Billy's awesome.
Yeah,
thank you. I wasn't expecting the plug, but no, thank you.
Very patient. Yeah. So,
are you open to questions, Deb?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Was there anyone that would like to ask a question? You can just put your hand up, or you can unmute yourself.
If you don't know how to put your hand up, you can just wave wildly, but you could also go down to the reactions bar, and it has the putting your hand up option. If you press the little heart, you've got a raise hand bar, and that'll bring you to the front, and we'll be able to see you.
Share also, if I'm happy to answer questions, but I did want to share something that we spoke about earlier, is my journey from child in England to getting to Australia, which I understand, the mushroom journey was to meet Ian, but also, I witnessed death through, I can't even remember what I was going to say now, through an ayahuasca journey. But the mushroom journey showed me exactly like I said, why I was here. And I can't remember what I was going to say now.
It happens to me all the time in interviews. And you just think afterwards, did I answer the question? I can't remember what the question was.
Yeah,
You know what? I always take it as, it's like when you try and say something to somebody and you get interrupted. If that happens to me 2 or 3 times, I figure I'm not supposed to say that. So just learn. But you know, when things come in like that and you sort of get distracted, or whether maybe there's a better question coming in, you never know. Michael said it's another Darius moment. I don't know what that means.
Yes, cheeky. What did somebody say to me? It was but I knew what I wanted to say, and I did get to ask him the next day. How good was he? He was so amazing, Darius. He was so humble. And
a beautiful energy. I could read his aura. So I was seeing an emerald frequency around him. It was gold first and then emerald, which was a very good lesson for me, because I thought that people had to go from gold into the blue crystalline. I learned something new with Darius. He's gone straight from gold to emerald. So, you know, it's like with the usher souls, you just don't know what you're going to get with ushers. They are wild cards. So they've often, the rainbow will come up in their aura. It's just unbelievable. Or I'll read for them. There'll be one color one week, different color the next week. And that doesn't happen with other people. It's only with the ushers. So the way I describe ushers is you're like a wild card, and it depends on what you're doing on the day will be your frequency. What you need to be on that day will be the frequency that you're emitting in your aura. It's uncanny. It's pretty freaky. Auric frequencies show themselves in curling photography, but that seems to be mood oriented. Seems to be what people, not always, a lot of people, it'll be their main soul frequency will show, but it can also be mood oriented. But yeah, ushers are just outstanding. So I'm going to have to I'll have to have a Darius category for my soul color chart. Forgot about that. I'm going to write it down.
I just remembered what it was.
Oh, brilliant. Go for it.
No, my mum, when I was 3 years old, my mum, you know, she'd recall stories, but from 3 years old, probably 3 till 5, I used to escape. She said I used to push stools up to the window, and I'd climb out of the window in the middle of the night, and I'd be going.
Nightmare, your poor mother.
Was in the 60s, and I'd be in our local Hillsborough shopping centre, and you know, the local Bobby would bring me back and knock at the door, and she said I was the bane of her life. She said, "Were you all?" She said, and she said, then I'd watch you, and she said, your diapers, you know, like the nappy things, the pants. She said you'd squeeze through the privet hedge. I was always trying to escape. Always. She said, so I knew when you're 18 you'd always go. And then it was a dear friend, Mel, I think is on the flight. It was a Kahuna sister who I met in 2015. And then later on, she said to me, Deb, she said, I think you were trying to go home. Home being here to meet Ian, which then came up in the mushroom journey. So it was, I was trying to come home, but I was always escaping. She said, my mum was a nervous wreck because they even put a 6-foot fence up. She said she caught me pushing the dustbin, like those old metal bins, and trying to climb over the fence. So yeah, who knows?
Wow. I'm curious. With the death doula work, were you ever conscious of seeing somebody's soul coming out? Did you ever get to see it, or did you feel it?
No. A few times, a handful of times. And the biggest one, because it doesn't happen straight away normally. Well, the ones that I witnessed, the most beautiful was again at the hospice. Actually, the first one was when I was 18, and she was an old lady, and she was called Dorothy. I remember, and that was in Hastings Hospital or Bexhill. And then the one was at the hospice, and it was a Buddhist monk, and she was beautiful. And they lay in the home, you know, they have this ritual, I think it's 9 days, but it was on day 3. And she was sat up, and she had a pink shawl, and I was in the room with her, and she left. And I just felt it, and she had a smile on her face. After she took her last breath, she was smiling, but then I witnessed her soul going. So yeah, I have. You just know. You just know.
It's
It's
amazing.
very special.
But that's a lovely confirmation, because I'm very well aware, because I work as a medium, that the soul stays with the body for about 2 weeks unless they're cremated. So you can see why a lot of different Indigenous peoples or religious, different religions, they'll do a funerary pyre, and you can see why, because the actual burning of the flesh actually releases the soul. Otherwise, the soul will stick around for a while. And that's not necessarily a nightmare, because the soul is bound to the physical plane and can then visit in dreams, or go and visit, their loved ones, and say, whatever they need to share, whatever message they want to pass on. But that was my awareness. So it's anywhere between when they've just gone and 2 weeks afterwards. But it's like that silver cord that connects the soul to the body in astral travel experiences. It remains for about 2 weeks, unless of course they're cremated, in which case it sort of pretty much ends at that point. But it's handy, because if you want to engage a medium, you most successfully would do it within the 2 weeks of that person passing, if they're not cremated, or before cremation. And after that, it can take 6 months or so for them to be strong enough to come through. So that's my suggestion with people: don't bother in that other in between time, or it certainly doesn't work as well for me. After that, their soul's left the body for about 6 months. They're harder to communicate with. Everybody's different, of course.
And that's the thing about bringing people home, bringing, like we used to do, getting people out of hospitals, and knowing that you can do it at home, and you can give your nearest and dearest, your loved ones, a beautiful death. And I've even done it online. Last year, I supported a beautiful young woman in Perth. She was very strong and powerful, and she was going to do voluntary assisted dying, and she wanted to be anointed. And so we had Zoom calls, and then she called them her women folk, her mum. And this was the third child that she was about to lose, and well, not lose, but you know what I mean, in the physical. And her women around her, and I taught them online how to do. I gave them mantras to say, prayer to say. I sent things over and told them. And she was there the whole time. It was quite surreal, actually. But to bring people home, and to know that you can keep people at home. They don't have to be rushed away straight away. You can have a loved one at home for 5 days. There are tools there that you can have cooling plates, and make it a normalized death. It's been so, bastardized that it's wrong, and it's, you don't be at home, but it's not. Bring them home. Bring your loved ones home. And it can, and let's normalize it.
Absolutely. We're talking about this beforehand, because hospitals, hospices, arenas, all these churches, Masonic halls, they're all in the crossing point of ley lines: schools, childcare centres. So when you've got a lot of death in an area, say you've had a massacre or something at colonisation, like we've got in certain areas, you can have a really negative energy there it can open up a dark portal. People experience a lot of pain and a lot of suffering in those spaces. So often that can be a negative space, and a hospice is very similar. Obviously, you've worked in some beautiful ones, which is really lovely to hear about tonight. That's not always the best place for someone to transition. And I know it's not always possible for people to take people home, but it's important to realize, and if you do have a loved one in a space like that, you can go along and use your intent to make sure that there's a space for that soul to move to the right dimension. If you learn how to psychopomp, even in a hospice, you can protect them from those things. But just the thing is, people don't want to know about death. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to recognize that we do have some control. We can do it in a nice way. It doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to be dangerous. And what's so interesting is, there's all this talk now of, you can't go into the light, and you're going to get misled from the moment you come out of your body. And that doesn't help people either. Because if you're going in with all this fear, that's where you might get misled or confused.
There's two questions in the chat from Melissa. How do you know if you're a soul usher?
Well,
I didn't. Rachel told me.
So if you go to an aura reader, they can usually tell you. Whether or not they would know it from my perspective, I'm not sure. I would say that the usher aspect would probably be something that a lot of other people know as well, not just me. Usually it means there'll be multiple colors that come up in the aura, not just the middle aura and the outer aura, which the outer aura being that's the furthest from the body. That's the next soul frequency that you're about to achieve. It's more like a rainbow. It's hard to explain. It's amazing. Or the person keeps coming up in readings with completely different soul frequency from when they were, and like, maybe Darius is an usher. Maybe that's why I got that for him, because he was two different colors. That don't work. That's not normal. It's not the normal progression that I'm aware of, that I work with. So it would make sense too. I mean, I shouldn't probably be saying that about someone. So we haven't used his surname, have we? So it's okay. But to have those two frequencies is probably very likely, given the work that he does. Make a lot of sense.
Wendy has said, I had no idea that you were so talented, Deb. The closing of the bones ritual sounds fantastic. How does one go about participating in this? Do you have an email address or something that people can contact you or anything?
Absolutely. You can email me, or I do have a website, but it's not finished yet. Or just my phone number if you want to contact me afterwards. So happy to give my phone number out.
Really?
Yeah. Well, not on
I
here.
am ringing off the hook, darling. Are you sure? How busy do you want to be?
Do you have an email address that you'd like to share publicly? We can put it with the video as well if anyone wants to get in touch about this.
Okay. Every day is, and then the numeral 4, living@protonmail.com.
And Wendy just said, I have your number anyway.
That's
all right.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable giving out your number, darling, because you'll just get swamped.
Lovely. But is there any other questions anyone would like to ask? Anything at all? No? What about you, Mick?
No, don't. Ian's already been more no questions.
Just realized we've got quite a few people in here. Nice work.
Yeah.
Well done.
Melissa's asked, would you recommend for an aura reader? Who would you recommend, sorry?
Rachel.
Yes, I'd recommend hers, yes.
Thank you. Also, there's Angie, my friend Angie, Sadath Walsh over in the States. She's I'm a bit booked up ahead, but obviously happy to read for people. But there's also Angie. So if I'll put Angie's. She's a great aura reader. We see the same frequencies. It's brilliant. I'll put her email in as well. But obviously people can contact me for a reading. It's just I get booked a little bit too far ahead.